They're watching me now, floating toward me like some type of bizarre hovering bird, yet with no apparent means of propulsion and no wings. Their eyes are glowing with yellowish light. Anyone who says they mean no harm hasn't experienced what I have. I know they'll take me soon, just like they've taken everyone else. I know this is the end for me, but I want to get this out there before they take me away, to tell my story, so that at least someone knows what happened. It all started about a week ago, when my friends and I decided to go caving. It's not like this was the first time we'd gone caving either. Jonathan was an experienced caver. His father had taken him caving when he was a kid, and so he had taken to the practice of spelunking with a few other college kids. I was one of them. And so when Jonathan called me up the other day all excited, I became instantly excited as well. "Hey, you want to go caving this weekend? I heard about some underground cave systems that were supposed to be pretty cool," he said over the phone, his voice nearly quivering with excitement. He liked spelunking more than I did. "Sure, why not?" I said. "When and where?" He told me the details, and then he hung up. A few days later, we drove out to a remote area in the woods near Jonathan's hometown. We all met up at the designated spot, excitedly piling out of his Jeep and heading off into the woods. We drove for about an hour until we reached what looked like an abandoned mineshaft entrance. Jonathan took out a flashlight and we all followed him inside, our feet crunching over old broken stones and dirt. We explored for about an hour, finding some old artifacts and desecrated tools, but nothing really exciting. We were about to turn back when Jonathan suddenly stopped, turning his flashlight to one of the sides of the old shaft. "Look, there it is," he said, pointing his flashlight at a small hole in the rock wall. "Is this what you were all excited about?" I asked incredulously. It didn't seem like anything special, just a small hole in the wall that led to a narrow tunnel. Jonathan nodded and gestured for us to follow him. We all hesitated, but eventually, we all followed him down the tunnel. "It's a new system one of my buddies saw while here the other day. He said he was going to come out here in a few weeks with the proper tools to map it out, but we're going to do it first." I was getting more and more nervous as we went deeper and deeper into the tunnel, but I kept following my friends. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of crawling through the darkness, the cave seemed to expand. It was dark as all get out, but the cave was much larger than it had been when we first entered. I stood up, stretching as I walked forward. "What is this place?" I asked, feeling a chill run down my spine. Jonathan shone his flashlight around, looking forward in the darkness. The cave was so wide and deep that we couldn't see any walls or any stone, just deep blackness. "I don't know," he said, his voice a bit shaky now. We all stood there a few moments, looking around at the darkness, until finally, Jonathan spoke up again. "Let's keep going," he said, leading us further into the cave. We went deeper and deeper into the cave, not speaking a sound. Suddenly, however, everyone halted at once. Around us, in almost an instant, we could see what I would describe as some of the most bizarre eyes ever. Their eyes were oversized, glowing with a bright and yellowish hue. Despite the darkness, it almost felt as if their eyes were looking into our very souls. The glow from their eyes seemed to shine and bounce off their bodies in a strange metallic color. "What the?" I trailed as Jonathan wordlessly shone one of his lights toward them. It illuminated 3 of them, hovering or gliding in the air noiselessly. Their heads were oversized and spherical, their bodies muscular, yet deformed. What made them even scarier were their arms, which hung at an abnormal length from their sides. Their hands almost at equal level as their feet. "What on earth are they?" Jonathan asked, his voice trembling. Nobody moved. I couldn't move. All I felt was a chill running down my spine, my hair standing on end as if I was in front of some horrific predator. We all stood there, frozen in fear as the creature glided closer and closer. Suddenly, however, one of the other guys spoke. Wait, I know what these things are. I've seen them on YouTube videos before, man. These are the Kentucky Goblins," he said in a low, quiet voice, his whisper transmuting the awe with which he spoke. Yeah, okay, so what are they?" Jonathan asked, still trembling. "The internet says there's some kind of alien thing," the guy continued. "They showed up in Kentucky in the 1950s, but then they just disappeared again. Nobody saw them after that. A lot of people said it was a hoax." Okay," Jonathan said, looking at the creatures with a mix of fear and curiosity. The creatures had continued gliding ever closer while we talked, and were now just a few feet in front of us. Any normal person would have bolted for it, but we were college kids, and a whole lot more curious. Not to mention, stupid. "Don't worry, guys. They're not dangerous or anything. The last time these things were sighted, nobody got hurt." He never finished his sentence. Jonathan and I screamed as we watched one of the creatures grab him, hoisting him up into the air with its abnormally long arms. He didn't struggle. He just hung there, paralyzed with fear. With a snap, he was gone, his neck lolling at an odd angle. The other two creatures glided closer to us now. We ran. At least I did, but it wasn't enough. I saw Jonathan and the other two guys who were still with us turn to run, but the creatures were already upon them. Their wide, hinge-like jaws open as they grabbed Jonathan's friends, easily lifting them up into the air. "What the?" Jonathan cursed, his voice barely a whisper. "Just run, man," I shouted, grabbing his arm and running as fast as I could in the other direction. We ran, and we didn't look back, but I could still hear their screams echoing in the dark cave. And then I could see the eyes behind us. The glowing, yellow, eerie eyes cast just enough light for us to see their bodies, their long arms, their wide jaws, and their sheer size. Their jaws hung open in what you would call a smile, though it was a morbid perversion of that. It stretched from hinge to hinge, every inch of their smile filled with a row of human-like teeth. It wasn't a smile, though. It was just hunger, and I could see the darkness emanating from inside their maws. Blood dripped from their teeth, the blood of our friends. I knew then that these creatures were animalistic, yet possessed an intelligence equal to or greater than that of a human. They were predators. We ran, faster and faster, and never looked back in fear of tripping, though I could almost feel them at our necks. I could imagine their strange, gliding motion as they hovered through the air, their claw-like talons with which they had so easily killed Jonathan's friends. I dove into the tunnel, scrambling desperately as I tried to outpace them. I clawed at the walls of the tunnel, pulling myself desperately forward. And then suddenly, I heard a scream that filled my veins with terror. With one glance behind me, I saw Jonathan struggling, clawing at the walls of the cave. His nails bled as he tried to pull himself forward, to pull himself out of their grasp. But I saw their clawed hands around his neck, and then there was nothing but blackness. I could hear their strange, human-like teeth crunching on his bones, tearing into his skin as they tore him into pieces. I didn't look back. I kept crawling. I crawled for what seemed like ages, but I don't think the creatures like small spaces. and I was trembling as I finally escaped the cave and stumbled into the night air. I ran, never looking back, and I just kept running until I reached his Jeep. And I knew he kept some spare keys beneath the seat, and I grabbed them. I started the car and never looked back. And I thought it was over. And the officials showed up at my house the next day. And they wore black suits and asked questions I couldn't answer. And questions about the cave, and the creatures, and Jonathan. And I really don't know what happened, okay? I swear. And I said, my eyes filled with tears. And they looked at me skeptically before finally releasing me. And I watched them drive away, locking my doors and shutting my curtains. And something didn't sit well with me, and I decided to stay inside for the next few days. Food delivery became normality, and my trash began to pile up. But I wasn't about to leave the house, not when I saw that van parked across the street from my place. They were watching me, and I knew it, but I didn't know why until tonight. I was watching a movie when it happened. I heard noises in the dark house around me, and then I saw them, hovering outside my window, their eyes still glowing as they hovered closer. I screamed and scrambled backwards, pressing against the wall in fear. They came closer and closer, their eyes never leaving my face. "Get away from me! Get out!" I shouted, my voice trembling. I knew what they wanted, though, and why the men in the black suits were keeping watch over my house. I knew why the creatures let me leave the cave and let me think I had escaped. They were never going to let me escape. I remember seeing their talons around Jonathan's ankles, pulling him further into the darkness. I had thought then that I had escaped, that I had somehow been the fortunate one. I wish I could say that I felt pity over Jonathan's death, but back then I felt nothing but relief. Now I know my fate is worse than his. They'll take their time with me. I'm writing this now as they glide even closer, their eyes linked with mine. I can see their jaws unhinging, their strange human-like teeth set around their skull in a patternistic fashion. They're gliding so slowly. They know I can't escape, so they're taunting me with the hope of survival. Stay away from the Kentucky goblins. Whatever you do, stay away from the darkness and stay away from the creatures that lurk in it. And if you can, just stay away. And if you see their glowing, golden eyes, it's already too late.